70,000 years ago, there were fewer humans alive on Earth than there are elephants today. Not because of war, not because of disease, because a volcano in what is now Indonesia erupted with a force so violent it blocked out the sun for years. Crops died, animals died, temperatures dropped across the entire planet. And humanity, the whole species, was reduced to a few hundred or maybe 1,000 people huddled together in a small corner of southern Africa, waiting to either survive or disappear forever. They survived. And then things got worse. Because what followed wasn't recovery. What followed was the Ice Age. 20,000 years of temperatures so low that glaciers covered most of Europe and Asia. Sea levels dropped by over 120 meters. Entire landscapes that are now ocean floor were dry land. And humans with no fur, no claws, no natural weapons, and no instinct for cold had to live in it. We aren't built for cold. Biologically, humans are a tropical species. We evolved in the heat of the African savanna. A wolf can sleep in a blizzard. A mammoth can graze through a snowstorm. You, standing outside in winter without clothes, would be dead in under an hour. And yet, here you are. The first thing humans did wasn't heroic. It was desperate. They followed the animals, not to hunt them, not yet, just to stay near them. Because where large animals gathered, there was warmth, there was shelter, and there was the possibility of meat. Early humans were not apex predators during the Ice Age. They were scavengers at best, opportunists at worst, but they had something nothing else had. They could think about the future. Every other animal responds to the present. Cold comes, an animal finds shelter, food disappears, an animal moves. But humans could look at a clear sky and think, winter is coming. They could look at a migration pattern and think, the animals will return here in 3 months. No other species on Earth could do this. And in an Ice Age, it was the difference between extinction and survival. The second thing humans did was clothing. No other animal had ever deliberately wrapped itself in another animal's skin to survive. First, you have to kill an animal larger than yourself. Then you have to understand that its skin, something you cannot eat, has value. Then you have to process that skin, a multi-step procedure with no immediate reward. Then you have to attach it to your body in a way that stays. Every single step requires imagining a future outcome that doesn't exist yet. A wolf doesn't think, if I do these 7 things in sequence, I will be warmer in 2 weeks. A human does. The needle changed everything. Around 45,000 years ago, humans invented the sewing needle. Before the needle, clothing was draped. After the needle, clothing was fitted. The needle is arguably what allowed humans to push north into the coldest parts of the planet and survive there. Then came fire. Not the discovery of fire. Humans had been using fire for hundreds of thousands of years before the Ice Age. But during the Ice Age, fire became something different. It became the center of everything. It was where food was cooked, which made calories more available and digestion more efficient. It was where tools were made because heat changes the properties of stone and bone. It was where the group gathered, which meant it was where language developed, where stories were told, where knowledge was passed from one generation to the next. The campfire is where human culture was born. Not as a metaphor, literally. Surviving the Ice Age wasn't just a physical problem, it was a psychological one. Imagine living in a world where the sun disappears for months, where the landscape is white and featureless in every direction, where the cold is so constant that it stops feeling like a sensation and starts feeling like the nature of reality, where food is scarce enough that every meal feels like it might be the last. Modern psychology has a term for what prolonged exposure to those conditions does to a human mind. It's called learned helplessness. The brain, overwhelmed by a hostile environment it cannot control, simply stops trying. It gives up. It goes quiet. Ancient humans didn't go quiet, and the evidence is right there on the cave walls. The famous cave paintings at Lascaux in France, Altamira in Spain, Chauvet, these were made during the Ice Age. Not after it, during it. While humans were cold and hungry and dying, they were also making art. They were painting animals in motion, using perspective techniques that shouldn't have existed yet, mixing pigments, carving figurines, creating musical instruments. The oldest known flute is 60,000 years old, made from a vulture bone, during an Ice Age. That's not survival behavior. That's something else entirely. Psychologists who study extreme conditions, people trapped in Antarctic winters, prisoners in isolation, survivors of disasters, consistently find the same thing. The people who survive psychologically are not the ones who are the strongest or the most disciplined. They are the ones who maintain a sense of meaning, who find something to do that feels like it matters, who create even when creation serves no immediate practical purpose. Ancient humans painting cave walls during an Ice Age weren't wasting time. They were doing the thing that kept their minds alive. The Ice Age ended around 11,700 years ago. The glaciers retreated, sea levels rose, the world warmed, and humans, who had spent 20,000 years being hunted, freezing, starving, and painting on on cave walls, emerged on the other side as the dominant species on the planet. Within a few thousand years, they had agriculture, permanent settlements, writing, mathematics, and civilization. The question worth sitting with isn't how they survived. It's what surviving did to them. 20,000 years of extreme pressure selected for the most adaptable, the most creative, the most forward-thinking humans in the population. Every generation that made it through was slightly better at planning, slightly better at cooperation, slightly better at finding meaning in a world that offered almost none. The Ice Age didn't just fail to kill us, it built us. The same way a blade is built, by pressure and heat and being ground against something harder than itself. You are not the descendant of the humans who gave up. You are the descendant of the ones who painted on cave walls in the dark, who sewed their clothes tighter against the cold, who sat around fires and told each other stories about a warmer world that was coming. The Ice Age tried to end the story. Instead, it wrote the best part of it.